My childhood and adolescence were spent in the company of my father, who became my legal guardian when I turned 2, after he married his new chosen one. She assumed the role of my adoptive mother, while my biological mother lived only 5 miles away from us with her new family, including a daughter and teenage son. Despite the closeness, I never felt the urge to visit her, and our monthly meetings only emphasized the lack of warm feelings between us. From the age of 5, I addressed her only by her first name, which clearly demonstrated our distance. In her house, I had no room of my own, no privacy. Even my photographs were not reflected there. One day, my birth mother persuaded me to accompany her to a family function. Surrounded by strangers, I tried to stay close to her. In the midst of the evening, she began to tell everyone about our rare interaction, claiming that only unforeseen circumstances had compelled me to attend. In response to her words, I asked to see my room, to which she tried to take the guest to her daughter's room. I objected, pointing to Amanda's personal space, and as a result, my birth mother, finding herself in a quandary, withdrew. She later tried to convince me not to discuss my lack of privacy in her home, citing that it put her in a disadvantageous light in front of her relatives. Tension was building, and eventually she demanded the phone from me for my alleged rude behavior. I reminded her that she was not my mother and sought help from my foster mother, who came to get me. This incident caused a disagreement between my parents about my actions while I sought validation, for my bio mother seemed intent only on showing that I was neglecting her family by not showing genuine interest in my visits. Your actions don't make you inadequate. You just didn't play along with trying to create the illusion of a close relationship in front of your guests. You opened her eyes to the truth without putting her in an unfavorable light. She was the one who put herself in that position. To avoid embarrassment, there are a few steps she could have taken: not discussing the topic in front of guests, providing you with at least an air mattress for visits, or purchasing a rollaway bed. You could suggest to her that you won't stay overnight at her place or avoid visits altogether until she starts making an effort to mend your relationship. Your mom, unlike your biological mom, really cares about you and is supportive in every situation. Your adoptive mother is the support and defense that is always there, ready to support you. Your biological mother may be narcissistic, putting her own interests above yours. But why maintain a relationship with someone who doesn't even treat you as her child? You have loving parents and your family is already complete. It's best to put the past behind you and live happily ever after with those who truly appreciate and love you. Your bio mom may complain about the lack of attention from your side, but does nothing to create a cozy environment for you in her home. The absence of even one picture of you in her house speaks for itself. You are absolutely wrong in your feelings and decisions. It's truly insane to continue hanging out with someone who only thinks about themselves. It's time to let go of the past and live a joyful life with those who truly deserve to be in it. Next story. Last week we, a family of 5, moved into a new house. Our house has 4 bedrooms. My 4 children live with us. Mark, who is 17, his younger brother Josh, also a teenager, teenage daughter Mia, and 27-year-old Tom, who has autism. Everyone except Mark and Josh got their own bedroom. Previously, the brothers shared a room, but after my 22-year-old daughter moved out last summer, they'd briefly separated into different rooms. With the move to a smaller house, Mark and Josh started sharing a room again, much to their displeasure. The house has 2 bedrooms located on the top floor along with a bathroom. One of these bedrooms, which is small in size, is for my daughter and the other is mine. There are also 2 bedrooms and a bathroom on the lower floor. One is similar in size to mine and the other is a little more spacious. I decided to give Mark and Josh the smaller of the bedrooms on the lower floor. My decision was driven by several factors. Mark is graduating from high school and will soon be leaving for college, which means Josh will soon have the room to himself, except for vacation time. Tom, my oldest son, works and pays me a small amount of rent. He spends more time at home than his younger brothers, and I plan to make his room more cozy by adding a couch and TV to it. My younger children tend to spend little time in their rooms. They prefer to be active. Despite Mark having his own room at their dad's house, and although he stays there regularly, he spends most of his time with me. However, despite the arguments presented, the teenagers have expressed dissatisfaction with my decision to give them a smaller bedroom. They feel that they should have been given a larger room, given that there are 2 of them. Josh proved to be the more disgruntled of the 2 brothers. He wrote to his older sister complaining about the current situation. In his message, he mentioned that his sister had discussed with me the prospect of taking their side. She suggested favoring the younger brother's interests by giving them a bigger room. I can see the logic in their argument. However, I doubt that a little more space will fully resolve their frustration over having to share a room again. I am open to discussing this issue and am willing to consider possible changes to the room allocation. Reflecting on my actions, I sometimes question the decisions I have made. It raises the question of whether I should reconsider the room assignment decision before my oldest son is finally settled into his new room. Your expression of concern raises important questions about the allocation of living space among family members. Considering providing larger rooms for two teenagers who have to share the same space seems reasonable. Given that they have to share not only a room, but also an already limited space, it is logical to offer them a larger room. On the other hand, an adult son who is alone in the house will probably be able to adapt to a smaller room. This will give him the privacy he needs, while the younger brothers will be given more space. This solution may help reduce their frustration at having to share personal space with each other. In regards to offering the adult son a television and other amenities instead of the younger children, it seems that a preference has been made that is not in their favor. Especially considering that the older son does not contribute to the overall family budget through rent or grocery shopping. If he were making a significant contribution, such as paying full rent or buying groceries, his priorities might have been viewed differently. However, in the current situation where he has no financial obligations such as rent, groceries, his own phone, car, and insurance, it is difficult to argue for his prioritization of using home amenities. In light of the situation where 5 people live in a 5-room home, it is surprising to see a decision to reallocate space that seemed ideal. Understanding the needs of each family member and their comfort is key to harmonious coexistence. Update: my oldest daughter has been a significant contributor to the rent since she was 19 and continued to do so until she left. Over the past 7 months, I have had to manage my own rent payments, which has proven especially difficult since October, as I do not receive child support from the father of my 2 youngest children. In addition, the owner of our previous home has proven to be unreliable. The many problems arising in the house never found a solution. Moving to a new home has provided us with not only a solution to these problems, but also the benefit of a larger yard, which I am sure my sons will enjoy. Your 22-year-old daughter began contributing significantly to the rent at the age of 19. At the same time, your 27-year-old son has been performing certain duties on your behalf. It is important to note that he is required to contribute somewhat more than the token amount you provide him. Expressing a preference for one child over another, especially since your son has special needs, should not result in significant differences in treatment. Giving him a larger room with a television set up solely for his needs and a discount on rent may give the impression to other children that their needs and well-being are being put on the back burner. Now I want to tell a different story. My husband and I have a beautiful baby girl. Every time my mother-in-law comes to visit, our daughter's reaction is very emotional. She starts screaming so loudly that she can be heard outside the house. This behavior continues until my mother-in-law is out of my daughter's sight. It is strange, but this reaction is observed only in her presence, because with others our daughter behaves perfectly calm. My husband believes that the reason for this behavior is the infrequent visits of his mother, although she visits us at least once a week, and sometimes twice. This is much more frequent than any other acquaintances or relatives we have, whom our daughter sees much less frequently. I see gaps in his argument, as frequency of visits is clearly not a factor. My mother has only met my daughter a couple times, but their interactions have been full of joy and laughter. Despite my personal reluctance to see my mother-in-law too often, my husband and his mother try to build a relationship between her and our daughter, attempting to pass her from hand to hand and comfort her when she starts screaming and choking back tears. However, my irritation reached its limit when my mother-in-law, when confronted with yet another cry, said, "Cry all you want, but yours won't get it." These words caused me to intervene and declare that in future, at the first sign of my daughter's discontent, she should be handed over to me immediately. Before leaving, my mother-in-law heard my husband suggest that she visit us more often, perhaps even in his absence, in the hope that the more her daughter saw her, the better they would get to know each other and, in time, develop a relationship. I expressed my displeasure at my mother-in-law's frequent visits. emphasizing that I do not like it when anyone comes to our home, especially in my husband's absence. This applies both at times when I myself am busy working from home and in general. My husband suggested that his mother could help by watching our daughter while I worked. However, I explained to him that the baby's screams, on the contrary, interfere with my work and reiterated that I prefer my mother-in-law to come over when he is home. My husband expressed concerns that I was allegedly interfering with the formation of a relationship between his mother and our daughter. I refuted this by pointing out that more frequent visits from my mother-in-law would only provoke more yelling from the child. Despite my personal positive attitude toward my mother-in-law, with whom I have a good relationship without toxicity, the presence of whom I often point out as a blessing in conversations with others, I noted that my daughter, for whatever reason, did not accept her from the beginning. Compounding the problem is the fact that watching my daughter's reactions to her mother-in-law makes me uneasy, especially when you see the little girl screaming and trying to avoid the attention of her mother-in-law, who in turn keeps trying to make contact. It doesn't make me feel dislike for the mother-in-law, but it does instill apprehension about her visits. My husband's suggestion that my mother-in-law could help me by taking care of the child in his absence would in practice prove to be more of a burden than a support. Not only does this situation deprive me of the ability to concentrate on my work, but it is also unacceptable because of my daughter's emotional discomfort. You're not wrong. Seeking forced bonding is an idea that rarely leads to the desired outcome. Perhaps your husband should try taking the child to work with him so that his mother can visit them there. This will allow you to assess whether such visits strengthen the relationship and improve your husband's performance. It seems that your mother-in-law is trying to relive her motherhood instead of letting the situation resolve itself naturally by acting calm and natural. You can't force a child to feel love for someone. Children are intuitive and tend to attach to those who allow them to choose for themselves who they gravitate towards. Your approach seems to be on the right track. It's important to stay composed, smile, communicate brightly, and offer different games, which often gets children's attention. There was a similar incident with my niece, who initially cried when I tried to pick her up. But I respected her space and didn't insist on close contact, which eventually allowed us to build a strong relationship to the point where the child began sharing more with me than with her own parents. It sounds like it's time for your mother-in-law to relax a bit and not take what's happening as a personal defeat. It's important to meet your child on their terms and let them determine for themselves when and how they want to connect. My next story. My husband, a 23-year-old, and I, a 21-year-old woman, have shared 8 years of life together. During Christmas vacation, he arranged a trip for us to Aspen, where he proposed to me. This event was a milestone for us, marking an important milestone in our journey together. Our mutual happiness was boundless, but a situation arose that got me thinking. My fiancé's sister, the same age as me, with whom we studied together in school, but did not maintain friendly relations, in those years she began to spread false information about me. Her words created an image of me as someone who bullied her or spread rumors, which negatively affected our relationship and affected my fiancé's relationship with her. Now, facing wedding preparations, I thought about my bridesmaids lineup, which included my sister, one of my cousins, a few friends, and my fiancé's younger sister. However, I deliberately excluded his older sister from this list. When she found out, her reaction was predictable. She accused me of being petty and having a tendency to dramatize situations. I responded by explaining that although she would receive an invitation to the wedding, I felt no desire to spend any more time on her than necessary, given our distant communication. She called my behavior immature, referring to long past high school years and claiming that the accusations against her were unfair. I responded by pointing out that it was my wedding and I had the right to organize it as I saw fit. Despite the diversity of opinions on the matter, it made me wonder if I was making a mistake in giving free rein to such musings. I am an adult on the threshold of an important life decision, readiness for marriage. There is seriousness and adulthood inherent in this decision, but the words of immaturity left by my fiancé's sister made me wonder. Reflecting on the opportunity to prove myself as a person capable of reconciliation and a new beginning, I have mixed feelings. After all, as my husband's sister and potential aunt to our future children, she will remain a part of our family. And while I have heard about the possibility of extending a peacemaking olive branch, I also feel that I have every right to choose the participants in my wedding ceremony, including my bridesmaids, based on personal preference. The dream of a perfect wedding is a wish I want to fulfill, and it does not include a role for her as a bridesmaid. That is my right, considering I plan to get married only once, aiming for the most perfect day possible. Her relationship difficulties were not confined to one age 13. They continued throughout her time at school. Accusations of bullying that followed before the rumors led to her parents contacting the school. However, the teachers confirmed my innocence, emphasizing her tendency to make misleading allegations. My quest for the perfect wedding day comes from a desire to make it one of my happiest memories. I recognize that absolute perfection is unattainable, but I strive to get as close to it as possible. The realization that marriage is more important than one day leads me to contemplate the possibility of extending an olive branch as a sign of peace and understanding, which could positively impact our relationship in the long run. My chosen one supports me in this as his bond with his sister is not as close, unlike my relationship with my younger sister, who is my maid of honor. She expresses the opinion that she was bullied by you during her school days. This comes as a surprise, as she desires a place among the participants in your wedding ceremony. Traditionally, the people present as the main part of the wedding procession are those who are on particularly warm terms with the bride or groom. Consequently, by claiming that there was no intimacy between the two of you and backing it up with her own words, she is questioning her own desire to participate in your wedding. However, despite the accusations made, the reason for her desire to be part of the celebration is because she is the sister of the groom and naturally wishes to attend her brother's wedding. I'm not judging you for not wanting her as a bridesmaid. After all, this decision can prevent unnecessary conflict and keep the atmosphere joyful during the wedding. A reasonable compromise would be for the groom to suggest asking both of his sisters to side with him as his cronies. This move will not only increase the groom's support from his family, but will also avoid awkwardness, given that the groom is not as close to his sister and their relationship leaves a lot to be desired. The options for the sister's participation in the ceremony can be different. She can be present at the wedding without taking an official place among the bridesmaids or the groom's cronies. It is important that it is the groom's sister who shows a willingness to compromise and understand, realizing that the boundaries you set are perfectly reasonable and fair. You're not embarrassing her. You're only trying to make your special day as pleasant and memorable as possible, far from unnecessary drama.